what's up everybody? Welcome to week 38 here on the 52 Horrific Weeks 1981 series. I am your host Moon616 and thank you once again for joining me here. Alrighty, so how's everybody doing? So we got week 38. So I guess there's like 14 weeks left in the year. Getting down to the nitty gritty here. Alrighty, so like I did in all the other weeks, put the remaining films into the randomizer, press random, and up pops Scream, of course, from 1981. This movie was written and directed by Byron Quinsonberry, something rather. Don't really know the guy too well. But yeah, getting into the plot of this one. This one is basically about a group of people. I can't even exactly say if they're friends or family or whatnot, but it is a group of about a dozen people on a rafting excursion. They're basically just rolling through the river, through the mountains, and they decide to stop at this area where they find this like abandoned town, like an old town. I'm not really too sure what the town was used for. Could have been like a mining community or something rather. They don't really go into it. But anyways, it's in the middle of the mountains and pretty far away from civilization. So anyways, they set up shop there for the night. And right after they set up, not long after, they're chilling out and trying to set up for bed and stuff, a murder happens, of course. Everyone's kind of like freaked out. They kind of think that it's one of the members of the group. Then they come to realize that it's probably kind of stupid, because why would they do that to someone that they're with? And so they decide that, it's probably an outsider. Then of course, another murder happens, and yeah, so now they're pretty convinced that it's definitely somebody from the outside, some kind of crazy madman. And then, so basically, they're kind of forced to spend the night there. Or they spend the night there, because it's dark. And so they wake up the next morning, or I guess they kind of sleep, I don't know. So they, anyways, they get up the next day, and they go to find their rafts, and of course their rafts are missing, so now they're stranded there. So instead of like doing the obvious, they figure it's about 30 miles away from civilization. They decide to stay instead of actually, walking the 30 miles and taking their chances through the mountains. I mean, 30 miles isn't that far to walk, to save themselves. But of course, they decide to stay, and another murder happens. So now they're really kind of stranded here and wondering what the hell to do. I'm just going to leave the plot right there. My thoughts on this one. Where do I start? This movie is actually quite appalling for 1981. This movie was released January 1st of 1981 in theaters. It's actually crazy this movie had a theatrical run because it is pretty poor. It's a pretty bad slasher film. The biggest problems with this movie is the writing. The story is so weak. I mean, okay, you start off with 12 characters in this movie, all of which you do not care about. You barely even get to know their names because there's so many characters. A lot of the characters are just kind of background characters. They don't really matter. So whenever, obviously a character always seems to divide themselves from the group and go off and get murdered. Ridiculous. Yeah, so there's basically no characters that you care about in the film. The story is just, you're just wondering what the fuck is going on, right? Pretty much the entire time. The dialogue in the film is just horrendous. It's bad. The direction in this film is pretty piss poor too. It's pretty bad. The soundtrack doesn't make sense to the movie. It has kind of like a happy feel at times. I think the soundtrack really hurts this movie big time. Even though that there's so many other elements that are shitty, the soundtrack is so noticeably bad in this movie that it just doesn't, fucking, the soundtrack's bad. There's just so many elements of this movie that are just so fucking poorly written and directed, and, oh man, like, what do I say about this? Okay, well, we'll talk about the kills here for a second. Now, the kills are pretty much all off screen. There's like minor blood. There's one decent kill in this film, and they pretty much show nothing. That's how abysmal the kills are in this film. I think there's around maybe 6 deaths throughout the film. They start happening right away. But like I said, you know, they're off screen. They don't really matter. So, you know, that element of the film, it's just... And there's no actual real build-up to them either. It's like every time the characters are together, and someone kind of dismisses themselves from the group, they get killed. You know it's coming. You know, the soundtrack does not help it out at all. It's just really poorly made. It's a really poorly made slasher film. You know, I've always tried to like this one because the thing is, the setting of the film has so much potential. It's in an abandoned, you know, kind of town little deal, but the director fails to capture that atmosphere. You know, it could have been done so much more better. You know, there is a couple scenes where it's got like potential to have, you know, pretty decent atmosphere, but it fails on every account because the soundtrack it just fails on all elements. And coming back to the characters, you don't give a shit about them. You don't fucking care about them all. So, you know, and you know what, and how this one wraps up. Like, come on, man, the story's so fucking weak. It's so weak. Ugh. Okay, I'm done bashing this movie. There's really no redeemable qualities for this movie, for me. You know, of course, this is just my opinion. If you do like this film out there, that's totally fine. You've obviously found some elements in this film that I have not yet to discover that are decent. I've seen this movie multiple times, and with every viewing, it just seems to get worse for me. I think one of the best things about this movie is that they didn't overdo it with the time. This one runs about 82 minutes, which is probably the approximate, you know, length that it should be, because, like I said, if any longer, yikes. But with that said, if this movie was a little longer, maybe they could have had some character development. You know, if they added about 10 or 15 minutes, or even cut down some of the stupid scenes, and actually developed some of these characters, and you know, so you actually cared about them, it would have been a lot different, I think. But, you know, overall, if I had to rate this one, I would probably give it around 2 or 3 out of 10. Like I said, I mean, even from the score up to the cinematography, everything sucks in this movie, in my opinion. They ruined a good setting with a really shitty story, and the acting is abysmal. Horrible film. This is released by Shriek Show. I believe this is actually like a Code Red disc, so it's the Code Red transfer. The transfer on this is not that great. You can tell that there's, you know, they stretched on that. It's pretty scratchy at times, and it's pretty shitty. It's got a, you know, 2.0 mono soundtrack, so it sounds like how it would have before. But, you know, honestly, I think one day I'm going to watch this movie with the commentary on, because I want to hear what the director says about this film. Like, exactly what he was trying to accomplish with this, because maybe it'll just be better with the commentary on, so I don't have to listen to the shitty-ass dialogue and, you know, shit like that. Anyways, I'm fucking done. Week 38, Scream. Probably the worst movie of 1981 that I have, like, on this list. Yeah. Mood616 signing off. If you've seen this movie, let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'd like to discuss it with people, so yeah, okay. I'm out of here. Mood616 signing off. Peace, homies.